Hi, on this video we're going to go deep in the tea with Janet and Ruth from our wardrobe department for the movie Hazel. If you ever considered a career in wardrobe, you're going to learn a lot. If you were ever just curious about how wardrobes are done for the movies, I hope you find this fascinating.
I'm Janet Hock-Brandau. I work in the wardrobe area.
Hey, Janet, you guys have worked so hard. I had no idea. I know you were working 18 hours a day for that first couple weeks, and you're here every day, on set, off set, working hard. Tell me what you guys were doing over there, because you had yourself and Ruth and Lily. You brought in my sister-in-law Heidi for a while.
Yeah.
Multiple sewing machines going rat-a-tat-tat all day and night. Tell me what you were doing over there.
Right. Well, there were multiple layers to what we were doing that first week. The principal characters all had built costumes, custom made for them to fit the time period and them. And so there was some last minute completion on that. And we had a great many extras that first week. We were on location for 3 of the days. And so we had to costume the gathering there. We had to do a schoolroom full of
How many people
kids.
roughly?
Oh my gosh. I'm
in
feeling
those
like
scenes?
there had to be around 40 total. And then there was a group of men as the searchers. And so all very different kinds of costumes for that. There was a party which involved some of the school students, but also other actors as well, to kind of have a mix of townspeople in that one. And so we were pulling all of that fitting. We had fittings coming in all the week during while we were shooting. You know, some people coming in to be part of it really towards the end of, like, we shoot this tomorrow, you have to come in today. And we just made it all work. And there were things to dye to be right for the period. Like, you can buy a sweater, but then does it look like a sweater that existed 100 years ago? And so we were dyeing things. We had laundry to do all of
What
that.
does that entail, dyeing, when you say dyeing?
Oh, yes. Well, hot water, and we didn't have a washing machine yet, so we were just making do with a soup pot and small batches, and we have a hot plate.
Wow.
That we're doing a little bit at a time on. So not the big garments like outerwear, but lots of sweaters, blouses, other things like that needed to just have that age tone. So yeah, that's what we were working on, just any number of things, pulling shoes, pulling hats, pulling scarves, pulling gloves out of stock. And so it was just a lot of running. The show must go on. Ruth and Lily and I have theater backgrounds, and the vibe is the same there, that the work has to be done. And everything has been so fun to see on the monitors because it looks great. So it's worth it in the end.
The end result has been amazing, but to watch what it takes. I also saw you taking clothes and making them dirty. You had, explain to me, I saw almost looked like stick deodorant or something, like tubes or something.
Yes.
Tell me what I noticed there.
Yes, those are called schmear sticks.
Schmear.
And they're made, the thing is, you see how dirty and worn the costumes look when you use them. They're sort of a wax product. They wash out. So when you're done, you get your costume back and you can reuse it again. Sometimes you have to distress a costume with like a cheese grater, literally something like that, to make it look torn and worn and, wherever normal wear would be. And then it's always going to look like that. But the dirt doesn't have to stay in it. It can be that product and wash out, or you can paint it, or you can dye it. It just depends on what you need and how permanent you need it to be for the garment.
Wow. Okay. You said that the actors, you had made their garments before they got here.
Ruth and Lily did that, yes.
Ruth and Lily. So they made them before they got here. So they got dimensions,
Yes.
people's measurements somehow?
Yep.
Okay.
After casting, that can all be done by distance, and Ruth is actually working on that kind of thing now for the next film, for Medora, of securing the measurements of the people who have been cast, and they've started on costumes for that film as well.
So you sort of make them in advance, but obviously when the human gets here,
You've got to
there's
fine tune.
alterations
Right.
in length of sleeve, maybe in the chest, or so you have to open them
Yep.
up. recut them, resew them. And then
It was a lot.
a couple dozen kids in school with school clothes.
Yes.
So each one of those children had to look like they owned those clothes.
Right.
So you had to put them on
Yes.
and then have them walk in front of you and
Yep.
measure their sleeves, and if it didn't look right.
Exactly. Some alterations like that, matching things. You don't, here's just any old skirt, here's any old blouse. You know, it has to look, people try to coordinate what they're wearing. And so there's an art to that as well, especially when you're pulling from stock, that you want to make it look like real people living in their real wardrobe. Not just, oh, these things were here and we're using them. And I think that was very successful.
Wow. And that's from boots to top hat.
Everything, including the kind of socks they're wearing.
Sock,
Very
wow.
careful of everything.
And layers, because this was a winter movie.
Yes.
So you had people indoors with indoor clothes. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you had to find, I saw some of the searchers, they looked like they were wearing buffalo coats. I don't know what they were, but
We had all kinds of animal hide out there. We had duster coats over winter wool, lots and lots of layers. And this is all indoors in the summer now that we're filming. And so everyone has been very, very patient. The kids in the scenes that we're filming now this week are in full winter gear. Our lead actor, Madeline, is in layers of wool, skirt, sweater, jacket, scarf, all wool. So they're wearing ice packs and they have little fans we can put on them and just all of the things to keep them comfortable. But it's what the look has to be, because there's a lot of close-up work, as well as wanting it to look right from a distance and how the garment moves and all of that. So yeah, the actors have been great and very game to just make it all work.
I saw some what looked like genuine concern when Madeline Hazel fell through the ice, because she fell through into genuine water. That was a water tank.
Yep.
So your clothes got soaked, and you guys were watching them.
Yes.
Like you, a concerned parent. What were you concerned about?
Oh, lots of layers again. Part of it is that fine woolens can't be dried in the dryer, because you'll have toddler clothes. If they come out at all,
So like
it'll shrink or
Madeline's coat
turn
is
to
wool?
or it's wool.
And you
her
got it-
sweater is Irish wool. Her skirt is wool. Her scarf is wool. So
And she wore all that into the
she
water.
wore that all into the drink.
But you have a couple outfits.
Well,
a couple sets.
It's not to trade. The other one is what we call the ice coat, because as the show goes on, and they're trapped in the wagon, you know, the coat takes on the weather around it while it's protecting the children. And so that one isn't actually for her to wear. It's what her coat becomes over time towards the end. Yes. So yes, we have duplicates of there's two of each of her costumes for different purposes.
Okay. So you needed to try to salvage.
We needed to know that coat was going to survive.
Okay.
The water was pink when we were done. All the snow we shook out of it was pink, but we were worried, like, what if there's a line on the coat now? And then but that good quality fabric held up. We were able to dry it out and make it look like what we needed to again once it was done being dried out. And they were careful with how they worked that, so that through time now, after she's gone in there, that's what we're shooting. We're not going back and forth before falling in and after falling in, because then that makes it hard to clean it up, dirty it up, clean it up, freeze it up. You know, all of those things take a lot of time, and a lot of fans and a lot of late hours again. So yeah, we're making it work.
Wow. Do the animals create an issue for you? Did you have to make more stretch or something so they could jump on and off horses? Was that a consideration?
It is and it isn't, because like the mostly the men's dress pants at this time, and I call them dress pants, but it's just what people wore. They weren't wearing blue jeans or dungarees every day, and so it's now what we think of as a dress pant, but it's just that nicer wool trousers. And so our lead actor Stelio, playing William, had to ride on horseback a number of times. And the older fabric it is, the more fragile it becomes. And those are, vintage in a lot of cases. And so we had to do a lot of repairs on his trousers, just from
little tears.
Yeah,
or something
exactly.
that
Well, and
occurred.
eventually big tears, just because the fabric says, you're going to make me keep doing this.
Okay.
Here we go. And fortunately, he's wearing a long coat for a lot of that, but still, we don't want him walking around with scary pants on. So we fixed him up, made it work. But yes, there's always something like that for potential when there's any kind of stunt work or riding work or just any kind of active work going on in the scenes. So
Yeah.
you just have to think on your feet and be real creative with how you can make those repairs sometimes.
You are on the set pretty much constantly. I see
Yes.
you pretty much every time an actor comes out of the snow, comes out of the sleigh. You're looking at them very closely. What are you looking for?
What I'm looking for is part of the snow work, a small part. The big snow work is what we see. There's a blizzard out here. It's blowing through the air. There's snow on the ground. There's a whole bunch of people working on that. But when we get close, we have to see that people have snow on them. And so I have little bags of snow that I carry around to make sure everybody is dusted, so they're in a place that's never getting warm. So the snow is always on them. And so that snow has to just be maintained in between, keep it as even as we can.
So we have about as much snow this
Throughout.
take as next
Right,
take.
or
okay.
more if they're coming in from outside, things like that. Yes, so that's one of my jobs. Also, we are having to pin some things, scarves, to keep them from moving when we don't want them to move. Undoing that in more active scenes where it should look like, it's flying around because you're battling the wind or whatever. And so lots of little things like that, making sure everybody's coat is buttoned up the same way each time. Do they have the right color socks on? Just every little thing that you can think of for continuity. We're just checking all the time because the actors have their performances to worry about, and we want them to focus on that.
I saw you checking. A lot of the scenes require the actors to wear scarves.
Yes.
So I saw you, I suppose, making sure it's put around their neck the same way,
Same
so
way.
it doesn't drape over one
Yes.
shoulder in one scene and a
Yeah.
different stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and the hat tilts the same way,
Yep.
roughly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that when you're on the set, that's what you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the right to stop production, to yell cut.
If it's gonna ruin a take, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know everyone here respects you greatly, and you don't abuse that. But yeah, if
no.
you saw something that didn't look right,
A few times, yes, you have
would
to. Yep.
stop. This,
Yep.
Something's not right.
Yeah, because people will pick up on it,
Oh, yeah.
and you want your editors to have the best possible footage to work with. And if it's like, oh my gosh, they're wearing a top hat in this scene and they're wearing a bowler hat, and it just, that would be egregiously bad. But I mean, if it's just obvious, then their work is that much harder.
You have a pretty big inventory of clothes
Mm-hmm.
now, I see. That's collected over some time. I know different people have brought you some
Mm-hmm.
period pieces, so you maybe try to incorporate that in when you can.
We do. There were a couple of beautiful period jackets up in Oliver County, where this story is set. I believe they're from the Historical Society. They loaned a number of things. Some vintage things are too fragile to wear, honestly, and we don't want to just sitting down and now the fabric is all split. But they can be very useful for design inspiration. And actually, North Dakota State University, where Ruth works, a lot of things are on loan from there as well. So that's been very helpful.
Okay. You have theater history,
Yes.
theater and film.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Have you worked on a film before with Daniel?
Not with Daniel.
Oh,
This
really?
is my
Okay.
first feature film. I've worked on 8 independent short films before this, and that was with my late husband, who was a film professor and a filmmaker.
Oh, where was
and
that?
In Moorhead. He
Oh.
worked at the university there. They founded a film production program out of their film studies program and brought him in to get that going as a filmmaker, and that's where we met. And then he found out about my film background. I went to college with Ruth. That was my link
Where
to
was that?
getting work in Moorhead at Concordia College.
At Concordia?
In the theater department there, among other things.
Macabre.
And yes, 100%. And I don't have one of those funny hats though, so
Oh, okay.
someday. And so we were having coffee last year, and tell me about that movie you worked on out in Bismarck. And she told me, I'm like, are you hiring? And yeah, and so here I am, and I'll be here for Medora as well. And so it's just been really fun to be on a set. You know, it's the same kind of work that's being done, but the scale, of course, is different. And like many people, I was really pumped to see the volume screen and the snowscape in action, because how rare is that, you know, to get to work with something like that. So it's just really been a good time. And I, having moved from doing theater all those years into working on films, honestly, it's the pace is different. A lot of the kinds of work are the same, but I get really energized being on a set and just seeing all the work going on in real time around you that everyone does, which is, I think, different from theater. It's more compartmentalized in some ways, and you don't see it together till the end. And I mean, here the end takes several weeks to do, and so I just love working on films. The small scale things I've done, you know, good films, but here we are on a feature, and I'm just having a really good time.
Did you grow up sewing?
I did.
Did you?
A traveling salesman came to our house when I was about 8 and had sewing machines, and my mom bought a sewing machine. Well, my mom doesn't sew. So it sat there, and I'm like, can I play with that? Sure, don't break it. And I taught myself to sew.
Okay.
And I think that the piece of my brain that thinks in patterns and systems was already in there, and this was just a way to discover that, because this is all visual work. And so that's just something I've done since then. And so that helps then when you want to get into costume work, which I did in high school and of course in college and grad school as well. So
I grew up in a home of sewers. My mother and sister, the rattle of a sewing machine.
yes.
And as you know, I've had 40 years in the apparel business. To watch you guys work is amazing. Just because I've been around sewing machines my whole life, but to see how hard you guys work has been very eye-opening here, that's for sure.
Okay.
So you're going to join?
We're rolling again.
We filmed the interviews for Hazel on a set in the middle of our Kmart studio. We had to stop when action was called at a nearby set. Janet and I had completed the interview. We came back to film basically the goodbyes, and I lost it. So I'll say goodbye to Janet here. Goodbye, Janet. I hope we work together again soon.
Ruth Barland, costume designer.
Ruth, you guys have the hardest working people here. I had no idea the amount of work that it takes to costume a set like this. We probably altogether had close to 100 different people, probably, between the funeral scenes, the church scenes, the searchers, the kids. So what else do you do besides wardrobe for feature films?
I'm a professor of theater arts at North Dakota State University. I teach makeup design and costume craft, and then a class called Period Style for Performance.
Wow. Well, I have seen some of the designs that you're creating for Medora, and they are breathtaking.
Thank you.
Where did you learn? Is this self-taught?
Oh, heck no.
Okay.
I have an MFA in theater design.
Okay.
And I guess that's where I got my start. Except I've been sewing since I was tiny and loved to draw. And those things just kind of came together for me.
And you merged those two talents.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Where did you go to college for this?
Well, I studied art at Concordia College, and then went on to Northwestern for my MFA.
The amount of hours that you put in here was probably the biggest surprise I've had on this set. Was that surprising to you?
No.
No? You
No.
expected that? Wow. Because I know one night I made you a bed here at 3 in the morning. And I don't know if you ever stopped.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, did
yeah,
you for a little bit?
I slept for 2 hours, yeah.
Wow. So, what were you doing that first week?
Well, trying to fill the holes. We came into this kind of behind because of overlapping with the school year. I didn't have my brain fully on this, and it takes a lot of mental and paperwork. And when we came in, we were still, we weren't up to date on measurements. We weren't up to date on who was actually in. And so we were having to do a lot of work on catching up who was really going to be in all these scenes. And it was every single extra we saw within that first week, I believe. First week was all the extras, and then like the last week is 3 people the entire week. So it's not very balanced, and that's what it needs to be, but it's just not very balanced for the costume area.
So you did a lot of research on 1920s rural North Dakota fashion?
Yeah. There's not a lot of pictures. There's a few years later, there's a lot more pictures, but at this point, there's not as much. But I found this great catalog. It's a company out of Canada called Eaton's.
Okay.
And they were like the Sears Roebuck of Canada. And what's fun about that is they were catering to rural people and rural people in a cold climate.
Ah,
So you really, I mean, anything that you needed for cold weather, you could find in that catalog. And so I had references for mittens and wool socks and hats and, from little kids and tots to older folks, all the long underwear, everything you would need to know about rural life in cold weather.
what fabrics have these garments been made of that these people are working in 70 degrees inside our comfortable studio?
Well, there's a lot of wool.
Really?
Yeah, wool and cotton.
Okay.
And that's actually, generally speaking, more comfortable than synthetics. The
Okay.
synthetics are like plastic bags.
Yeah.
And they also don't light. They don't look like natural fabrics. They don't look like the historic fabrics. They don't distress the same way natural fabrics do. They don't age the same. So it's just more effective to go with the real thing.
The snowscape. Have you ever worked in a indoor snowscape
No.
setting?
No, but I live in North Dakota.
Okay. Yeah. So you know what it looks like for real. You've been in the set.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the snowscape? Is it pretty convincing for someone that's seen a lot of real blizzards?
Yeah, I think so, especially that disorienting blindness. I mean, where all of a sudden the horizon disappears and people just kind of walk out of a cloud. That felt real. That's what it's like to be outside, yeah.
I saw you watching very closely as Madeline fell through the ice.
Yeah.
As Hazel, I should say, fell through the ice. What were you watching for?
I think I was wondering just how far she was going to get wet, up to what point, and how much was, how much the sleeves would catch on the snow in the water, the scarf, other little details like that. As we were going to move ahead, how wet would she have to be? Because after that, I had to kind of model the coat for being stiff with ice. So
I saw the coat hanging there. Is the frozen coat. It looks exactly like my pants after I've been out snowmobiling. I'm amazed.
Yeah.
It's hanging there on your rack. And was that starches you put in it to hold it like that, or is it?
yeah, it's a craft product that's used for stiffening fabrics.
Okay.
And then there's some paint again mixed in with that, and then just some snow,
Okay.
spray snow.
You're already moving on to Medora,
Yeah.
so we start shooting Medora in about 6 weeks. Not to panic you, but about 6 weeks from now. You tell me about your next 6 weeks.
Well, every day I'll get up and garden for a little bit,
Okay.
and then I'll start sewing.
So you get to go home,
Yeah.
which is Fargo-Moorhead area.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a costume shop there where I can spread out and work. So
Okay.
that'd be nice.
All right. But you will be working on Medora
Yes.
most days.
Yes.
We're going to show some of the pictures of your drawings, and then we'll show them come to life, which is the absolute magic.
Let's hope, huh?
Yes, which is the magic when we see these women, or Medora, or the other women too, enter these parties and the places they're going. I'm so excited to watch your drawings come to life on these people. I've never had that experience. I've been in the apparel business, as you know, my whole life, but never to see such magnificent gowns as the drawings that you've done.
Thanks.
They are just breathtaking, and I can't wait to see the finished product. So you'll work for the next 6 weeks on both Medora's gowns, but obviously there's other actors. So a lot of other actors.
Yeah, but she and Antoine are the focus. I mean, they really are the fashion focus. And then there's like 2 steps of contrast compared to that. There's the people of Medora and the people of Little Missouri. And those garments will be largely rented and found. So the art there is really putting them together to create characters, individual characters for each one.
And you'll oversee that process?
Yes.
So their garments, so somebody doesn't show up in a Wrangler shirt or something that's not period correct.
Yeah.
There was a little photography. There are some pictures of Medora. There's some pictures available of the Marquis. Certainly other people of that time period. You've also studied those.
Yeah, lots of photos. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of photo documentation of this, of the Wild West as it was being settled.
Okay. But it has been a joy to watch you guys and just to see how hard you work and the beauty of your costumes and how period correct they are. Can't wait to see what Medora has to bring, because I cheated and peeked at some of your designs and they are spectacular. So thank you, Ruth, very much for.
Well, it's a joy for me. It really is a lot of fun, and I'm here to do the work, so I love it.
It shows in your work. It really does, and I know all the actors and all the extras just love working with you. And my desk is near you, so I see them walk out of your department, and it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I did it.
Great. We'll have another episode where we interview the wardrobe team for our movie Medora. Check out this episode and see how we did the wardrobe for both Hazel and Medora in this episode. See you soon. Thanks for watching.